How was chocolate enjoyed before it was a bar? Well, chocolate bars were only invented in the 19th century, and before that, if somebody said to you, would you like some chocolate? They meant hot chocolate. That, of course, wasn't something that came from Europe, it came from South America. Chocolate was produced in countries that today we would refer to as Mexico, Guatemala, that sort of northern arc of the Southern American continent. And it was a drink that was known there for thousands of years, and many of the indigenous cultures enjoyed chocolate at various times. They drank it initially from very tall pottery vessels, and these were tall because the chocolate was made with cold water, not with hot water. The cocoa nibs were ground and mixed with cold water, and then it was poured from a height into a vessel and then done around until the chocolates began to froth, and only then was it drunk. Various things such as chili and maize were added to it, but this was very much to the taste of the indigenous peoples, not to the taste of Westerners. In fact, when Westerners tasted chocolate for the first time, they thought it was a disgusting drink. But they realized there was something about it, so bit by bit they started to add things like sugar and spices to it, and it became more the hot chocolate that we know of today. So after the Spanish conquest of Mexico in particular, they were no longer drinking from the pottery vessels. They were drinking from something simpler, like a coconut shell. But a coconut isn't, as I'm about to demonstrate, that practical, because if you put it down, well, it kind of wobbles and you don't want chocolate all over yourself. They use the scallop shell as a saucer, but even then it's not the most brilliant thing. So what they did was put a piece of sweet bread in the saucer, and that's much more steady. And you drank it like so. And then, of course, you had the sweet bread to take, to dip into the chocolate. That's lovely. I recommend a bit of brioche and chocolate. Excuse me, eating on camera. This, of course, was what the local people had, but that was no good for the high society of colonial Spain. They started to mount coconuts with silver, often with two handles, with the rim on that. Believe me, drinking from a coconut shell isn't actually that, doesn't feel that nice on the lip. But what of the scallop shell? Well, that had to be got rid of as well. So they made similar ones in silver. And they had a gallery around rather than the piece of brioche. And the coconut shell sat into the gallery, and you drank it thus. Sorry. These silver saucers were known as mansarina. And the mansarina was after the Marqués de Mancera, who was supposedly the inventor of it. And he set the form for what porcelain chocolate cups would become. Because if you compare a coconut chocolate cup to a porcelain chocolate cup, the handles are the one thing that survived. So chocolate, of course, left South America and came to Spain. And then it became very popular, not only because it was delicious and it was exclusive and it was expensive, but because the Pope declared it wasn't a food, it was a drink. So therefore, you could drink it during fast days and Jew holy days. So chocolate really took off. After Spain, chocolate then became very popular in France as well, where again it was seen very much as a medicinal thing. And in France, this kind of porcelain cup was invented with the same porcelain version of the mansarina, but in France they call it a trembleuse. And the idea is that it was a trembling cup, so if you had a shaky hand, you wouldn't. But of course that's not really true. That may became what it was, but originally the trembleuse was based on the mansarina. Now, one thing about chocolate at that time, before 1828, is that it contained the cocoa butter. Nobody had found out how to remove the cocoa butter until Cornelius van Houten invented the cocoa press in 1828. So that's why when you see magnificent chocolate serving equipment like this with the glass is there so you can have a drink of water to get the greasy taste of the cocoa butter out of your mouth. And that's why if you go to places like Venice, to the famous Cafe Florian, and you order hot chocolate, you'll still be served a glass of water.